So, welcome to our Emerging Trends Knowledge Share, the next session up. We're going to jump right in with a concept that the AI inflection point is here right now. So, Satya Nadella, the chairman and CEO of Microsoft, has been known to say that we're living through the most transformative technology time at least of our lifetime, maybe back to where the horse and carriage, right, was converted to gasoline engine. So the winners aren't waiting for the perfect condition. They're building AI readiness right now. And the times are difficult because we have about a third of enterprise size organizations feeling that they're really ready for the implementation. They've done pilots and they've done some very cool testing. But the gap between the promise and the readiness has never been wider or more critical to close. So in today's session, we'll get into it a little bit deeper, but I want to give you some words right from Satya about cognitive labor. This is the work we do in our mind prior to execution of action. Listen.
My problem with the definitions of how people talk about it is cognitive labor is not a static thing, right? Like there is cognitive labor today. If I have an inbox that is managing all my agents, is that new cognitive labor? And so today's cognitive labor may be automated. What is the new cognitive labor that gets created? Both of those things have to be thought of, right? Which is the shifting. So that's why I think this distinction, at least in my head, I make is don't conflate knowledge worker with knowledge work. The knowledge work of today could probably be automated. Who said my life's goal is to triage my email? Right? Let an AI agent triage my email. But after having triaged my email, give me a higher level cognitive labor task of, hey, these are the 3 drafts I really want you to review. Like that's a different abstraction.
So that's fantastic. And for me personally, I don't know about everyone on here, I don't want to triage my email, but a great example. I'm going to give you, though, a greater understanding of what we mean about the differences between knowledge work and knowledge workers. We call it the expertise paradox. And this is, for an example, back many years ago in London, cab drivers would spend years memorizing over 25,000 streets. And that was the expertise of the job. Now, introduce GPS. And it automated that hard part, the specialization of the knowledge, and the result, the barrier to entry, jobs, vanished because the supply skyrocketed. Anyone with a driver's license and GPS could do the job. And ultimately, the wages at best flatlined, they really sunk. Now, companies were making money, but people were no longer supporting their families. This is when technology takes the expertise away, you become a commodity. In contrast to that, let's look at accountants. So years and years ago, decades ago, their primary skill was bookkeeping, data entry, repetitive calculations. But when computers were introduced to automate the easy part, then the administrative drudgery that they lived in was taken away. The result, the accountant, unlike the cab driver, was left with a very high level of analytical work and complex judgment calls. The job became more specialized, more valuable, and higher pay. So the question really isn't, will AI take our jobs away? It's, will AI automate my years of experience or eat that administration drudgery that we have? If it takes away the drudge, your value increases. If it takes away the experience, your competition increases. So with that said, keep those concepts in mind. I want to kick off our emerging trends. We're going to look at today the AI readiness, right? And some companies are there, but a lot of us are struggling to get there. I am Joe Liebe. You've seen me on other one of these knowledge shares, but I'd like to introduce my co-host, co-creator, a co-troublemaker, Rory Fitzpatrick from our healthcare team. How are you, my friend?
Hey, Joe, how are you today? I'm really
Great.
thrilled to be part of this discussion and thank you all for joining. This is really such an important topic because AI isn't just a future concept anymore. It isn't just in healthcare or any specific industry. It's really shaping how organizations operate today. So our goal today is really just to understand the path forward and how do we turn the idea of AI readiness into something that's practical and actionable. So, Joe, I'm looking forward to diving in. Let's get going.
Me too. Thank you. So, as we launch into this, just think our roles, Rory and mine, and my whole teams, our whole teams, are as trusted advisors to enterprise organizations to help the complex technology evolution that's happening through digital transformation. And we're going to share our experiences and our projects and all the things that we've gone through. So, Rory, I'd like to start us off here. The three pillars of AI readiness, and it's fairly simple, but this is the information that we're pulling from above. It breaks into three foundational parts: foundation, infrastructure, and activation. From the foundation, this is your data architect, the governance that's wrapped around it in a framework, and then organizational alignment. It doesn't really matter what our widget is. It all has to be aligned to the organization, to what we do. The infrastructure then becomes the tech stack, the security protocols, and the integration into the capabilities, because we have so much unstructured data and siloed data systems. And then the activation is the people, the talent strategy, change management to create continuous innovation. And boy, are we moving at lightning speed. Rory, have I oversimplified it, or what do you think of this plain structure?
Joe, again, this is a big topic. There's a lot to unpack when you start getting to it. But if you think about this framework, it captures what organizations need to focus on to successfully adopt AI as part of an ongoing business transformation. And I'll use that word adopt a lot because it's really, that is what we're doing. We're adopting a technology. It's not we're adopting AI. It's another technology. Right. So to start the foundation discussion, I whether you guys like it or not, I think there's some really great quotes out there about where we're headed. And there's a gentleman out there, he's a popular consultant, engineer, economist, writer, and all around business management, Swiss Army knife, Dr. Deming. And he puts it really, really well. He says, without data, you're just another person with an opinion, right? And so keep that in mind, and let's look at the reality of data today, right? Where are we? So the industry analysts are reporting on AI progress that most organizations are flying blind because 80% of their data is unstructured. So we all deal with this every day: emails, paper, PDF, scans, images, notes, all of that stuff that we're constantly being barraged with. That, in essence, is the 80% of what is not structured. So until you make that information usable, AI can't deliver real value. The goal isn't more data. It's turning that unstructured 80% into something that's searchable and actionable and that your AI engine can consume. So just little fact here. Right now, globally, we're generating about 400 million terabytes of data per day. By far, the fastest acceleration of data in the creation of human history. To say that a little differently, roughly 90% of all data in human history was just created in the last 2 years. That's a big number. To put it at our level, the average person on the planet is hit with the equivalent of like 15 terabytes every day. So if you look at the volume and the velocity of data, it's exploding. So getting a handle on how are we going to manage that, how are we going to be ready for that, is really the task here. So from those staggering numbers, let's look at some AI readiness steps. AI Foundation really reinforces the idea that AI readiness starts long before anything's deployed. It starts with the quality, structure, and accessibility of that data. So let's look at the first one, right? And on your screen, you'll see three positions. And again, these are critical steps that I hope everyone looks at and takes notice of. But the first one is really, really kind of the beginning of our current state of assessment. And we talk about assessments a lot, but we really need to map the data sources when we go back to the data question. How do we know where our data lives? How clean and complete is that data? You guys have all probably been on some CRM or transformation to Oracle, Salesforce or something. And the question is always, how good is that data going in? Well, it's only as good as what you put in, right? So, and how easily and securely can our teams get to that information across all of our systems? The second position is really around establishing governance. And this is one that's often overlooked, but it's really about how do you define ownership? Who owns that data and the AI outcomes? What security and compliance controls will we enforce? And what ethical guardrails will govern the use? And lastly, and I know we use this word a lot, but let's create a roadmap. Find those quick wins. Where should we where we can learn where to prioritize what we need to do now, what capabilities we want to build next, and then how do these steps lead to our long-term vision of AI and business value? Because obviously we're not going to create any value out of that. There's really no point in trying. So when all of these three pillars are aligned, the foundation, the infrastructure, and the activation, organizations can move from an isolated AI experiment to a real system-wide transformation. So, Joe, you've worked closely with our information governance team. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so I think when you can break things down to a simplest form, I really believe in just having that common sense to everything, technology, transformation, even culture development, and you can't build structure on top of a weak foundation. So before we start moving into advancements, this part is key component and it's ongoing, Rory. It lives on. So
Yep.
let's move into the second pillar, which is that infrastructure, right? That the data is carried on that you just talked about. And we're going to call this the engine of AI success. And so Mary B and Mary and I are very close, so I can call her by her first name, the CEO of General Motors. Now, I'm from Detroit, born and raised. And so we're car people, Rory, here. And whether you love GM, I'm a fan, or Ford or Toyota or any of the greats, right? I actually drive a Jeep, one of the most, right, trusted drivers. But at any rate, what Mary from GM, by any expense of the imagination, is a dynamic global company. She's recently shared that we're not just a car company anymore. We're a platform innovation company. And they are ahead of a lot of the leading manufacturers from that platform. But this requires a complete shift in infrastructure transformation. And whether I commend them for identifying it, because all organizations, everyone on here, it's not the technology, it's the mindset shift. It's key. But what good looks like, again, to keep it simple, is really four components. And there's a lot of layers in here. But first and foremost, cloud architect. We need scalability and flexible computing power for the AI workload. It has to be. There could be some on-prem stuff, but that cloud architect has to be there. Around it, security framework. So zero trust model is what most experts are saying protect not only the sensitive data, but the model itself. So we could have a whole session on that. This is high level, fast moving. Then the integration layer. Rory, you talked about unstructured data. You talked about these silo systems. We need connectors, APIs that can bridge the legacy to the modern system. It is unbelievable to think that we could just upgrade everything. Legacy and unstructured will be part of the formula. And then the last piece, and this is where we see the number one miss, not the cloud, not the security, although those are absolutely needed to be focused on, it's the monitoring tools. In order to get your real ROI, real-time dashboards ensuring not only that the performance is being matched to expectations, but the compliancy, which is critical in this new technology. So, Rory, am I on target? Do you see this aligning with healthcare and other industries that you are exposed to?
Yeah, sure, Joe. I mean, certainly I work in healthcare today, but remember, healthcare is you've got part of every industry, manufacturing, pharmaceutical, everything. So, the reality is AI doesn't create value on its own. If your foundation isn't ready, the model can't perform. It can't magically happen. That's why organizations are moving away from, and again, being an IT guy, this is an interesting statement, but that's why organizations are moving away from the traditional IT thinking and becoming platform driven, because that's what actually lets AI scale safely and reliably. So at this point, again, here's the IT guy preaching, at this point, technology can't be a cost center anymore. It's got to be a strategic investment if you want to scale AI and modernize. And I think I used the word outcome before, and I'll use it again, but as you see on your screen here, we've got a great outcome. We're going to be looking for these all over the place. But here's one from my industry. And it's one that is a great example of how AI is working and something that's impacting all of us, and that's healthcare outcomes. So health systems are turning to hybrid cloud, which, 5-10 years ago, all of you that have been in healthcare, we'd never used that word before. They wanted all their equipment on-prem. But they're turning to the hybrid cloud to safeguard patient data. We all know that our health information is the most valuable to cyber pirates, so safeguarding patient is a good thing. And create the infrastructure AI needs for next generation diagnostics. Here's the outcome. AI-driven diagnostics are currently delivering up to 30% faster clinical decisions, allowing your care teams to intervene in your care sooner and significantly improve outcomes better. And before we wrap up today, you can see on the screen here, we've got a couple of screen grabs. We're going to send you an executive brief highlighting some of the real world outcomes that we're seeing in healthcare today that are real, and how perhaps you can apply those same lessons across every industry. And it's a really important thing to look for, and I've said it before, you got to find those wins, and certainly people being healthier and disease being prevented and identified quicker is really a great example of how AI is going to help us. So Joe, next, let's go into arguably the most important and by far the most complicated, and that's the human element.
Oh, sorry, me. I'm asleep at the wheel. My fault.
No worries, no worries. So when you think about the human element of AI, this slide really gets to the heart of what separates organizations that experiment with AI from those that truly operationalize it. So technology might be a visible part of the equation. We all go to ChatGPT or Copilot or whatever, you see the visible, but the real impact is on its people. So on the screen, you're going to see sort of three areas that we all should adopt as our North Star for our AI infrastructure project. So number one, as you can see there, is workforce education at scale. The analysts tell us today that 70% of our roles that are today in play will require AI competencies within the next 24 months. That's not a lot of time, right? When you're thinking about educating a workforce. And organizations that lead in AI investment early, they're building broad practical knowledge across workforce across the workforce so that people understand how to use AI safely, effectively, and confidently in their daily roles today. And if you put it in context, think back a year ago when we were all playing with Copilot or ChatGPT ChatGPT, and what are we actually dependent on right now every day for what we do in our life. So it's a practical reality. The next thing is a change champion. AI transformation accelerates when visible, empowered employees advocate for technology adoption. I used that word in the beginning. And it helps teams navigate the uncertainty, providing that trust and clarity as to where something may apply that we can use AI for. And then last is really that innovation culture. And this is a big one that certainly we can't begin to even make a dent in today, but that culture is critical. So successful AI programs, they thrive in environments where experimentation is encouraged, failure is treated as learning, and the teams are rewarded for exploring new ways to solve problems. And I can say in my role with the gentleman that I report to, he encourages that all the time. And it allows you to find answers to things that you probably wouldn't have found had you not been able to experiment. So, Joe, what are your thoughts on the human element as I put it out?
So look, I think I'll go back to the opening example between the taxi cab drivers and the accountants. If it's improving your production, improving your knowledge base and expertise, you're winning. If it's taking away those functions, those values, is where we're at risk to fall behind. And really, Rory, our research shows the companies who are really turning real ROI, whether it's in performance or profitability and revenue, are the ones that aren't necessarily spending the most. They don't have the biggest, baddest budget. It's the ones that have the most engagement, the preparation, and they're empowering the workforce with a safe zone that they can grow and learn together. This will be the key. And Roy, I know you've got an example here for us.
Yeah, technology is one of those words where when it's new, it frightens everybody. In 2009, when healthcare was mandated to move to an electronic patient record, everybody panicked. Look what goes on today. We don't have clipboards anymore. Your record is accessible. So technology scares people. But interestingly enough, Mark Benioff, who's the CEO of Salesforce, he really puts it well. He says that technology is really only 20% of the equation. The secret to successful transformation isn't the technology, it's getting the people on board. And I think we can all agree with that. So think about that as you look at your AI projects, not necessarily from a technology standpoint, but from a people standpoint. So Joe,
That's a great, yeah, go ahead, Roy, sorry.
Yeah. So Joe, let's move on and talk about, let's kind of move from the hypothetical to the readiness and action. And we've got some great examples here. And I know you've been doing a lot of work in that area. So let's talk about that as we start to wrap up here.
So if the methodology can be taken into play on all sectors, right? Your infrastructure, your foundation, and your activation. Going back to the whole opening slide, this is what can be expected. The proof isn't in the potential. That's where we're building these neat models and playing in the sandbox. The proof is in the performance. And my dad used to say, the proof wasn't in the pudding, it was in the taste of the pudding. And so we're being reported back to from enterprise leaders, and Conoco works with a lot of these folks, 40% faster decision making, especially when we're looking at things like accelerating planning and that operational decision side. That's huge. And then from a savings perspective, multiple millions of dollars annually when that back office operational efficiency can gain from AI powered process optimization. It's all about process optimization. Back to the real time. We have to be doing these decisions now, and savings come from it. Back to Rory, your statement of the human element being the most complex. Imagine if we deploy right an 85% employee satisfaction level. It's unheard of. I don't know if we've done anything like that since we brought coffee machines into the workplace. But this is what teams are reporting: higher engagement when AI handles those routine tasks, those mundane tasks, and it frees them up for the strategic work. That's again going back to that cognitive labor And do you want to spend it on triaging your email or the final outcome of the prioritization and some options of execution? So, Rory, if that makes sense, kind of give us some wrap up here and point this in the right
Sure.
direction.
Sure. Joe, this is really where the conversation shifts from theory to measurable impact. And look, we all work for organizations who, if they're going to invest money, have to have an impact, right? AI readiness isn't just a strategic aspiration. Organizations that build the right foundation and infrastructure are already seeing those meaningful results. I talked about it in healthcare, where AI ready systems are helping with disease detection earlier, personalized treatments plans. In manufacturing, finance, retail, they're predicting equipment failures and organizational breakdown before they even happen now. They're optimizing supply chains in real time. So it's happening now.
Okay, Roy, so if it's happening now, whether we're in the beginning, middle, or well within the journey, give us some clear action.
Sure. I think this final slide really brings everything together in a simple format. AI readiness can feel and is overwhelming. It is to me and everybody else that's in the middle of this, right? But when you break it into clear steps, it becomes more achievable. And certainly if you can get it to the point where it's repeatable, that's the sweet spot. So you need to have a readiness assessment first approach and a supporting culture. Without that, you're dead in the water. So let's kind of look on the screen at the three actions, right? The first one is conducting a readiness assessment. And essentially, we all do this all the time. This is where organizations evaluate their current maturity across those three pillars we mentioned: foundation, infrastructure, and activation. It's critical to be honest about the gaps as well as the strengths. Be very honest about where you are, because if you miss a few, you're going to regret it later, right? It's like building a house without the right infrastructure. And then a clear assessment is going to give you an accurate baseline, which becomes that compass for your AI roadmap. The second is an action. Second action is really identifying your AI champions. We talked about this. It's got to be cross-functional. It's got to be diverse. It's got to be operations, IT, finance, everybody that's involved. And really what's important in this one is include the skeptics, right? Include the people that are saying, oh, this will never work, because their questions and their doubt does strengthen the assumptions that you're making, and it reduces those blind spots and makes your strategy more resilient in the end. And then the third and final thing is really define that first use case. And I can't say that enough. We've got to find something where you're going to get a quick win. Anything that's going to lag a year, 2 years, 3 years down the road and still not off the ground, first of all, your organization is not going to support it. And second of all, nobody's going to be there after the first year. So find something that has high impact and is achievable, right? That you can measure against. The bottom line.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
The bottom line is research is showing that early targeted AI developments supported by strong teams and aligned infrastructure led to significantly better outcomes. I mentioned before about how data creation is exploding. 90% of all data has been in human history is created in the last 2 years. And then it's the AI adoption that's exploding, but the failures come from poor foundations. So I encourage everyone to have a readiness first approach. So Joe, with that, let's hear your final thoughts and let's close things out.
Yeah, absolutely. We got a couple minutes. We're going to try to still get you out at least 30 seconds early. So look, Rory, don't do this alone, right? All of the research and the best practices show seek out trusted advisors. Now, Konica believes that we can do this on many levels of this framework, and we welcome you to engage and test us. No one's perfect, but just in the sheer knowledge shared, this is where it's heading. So before we end, I want to share some information here, an insight from Simon Sinek, who is a wonderful motivational speaker, really focusing on leadership. Here we go.
What do you think is the most misunderstood aspects of being a leader? What do people get wrong?
Oh, simple. Most people think being the leader is being in charge. Incorrect. Being a leader means you take care of those in your charge. Being a leader, as I said, is the acceptance of the awesome responsibility to see those around you rise, whether you have formal rank or not. People do as they say because they have authority, but nobody trusts them, nobody likes them, nobody would quit a job for them to follow them. And you and I both know people who may or may not have that much formal authority, but people trust them and love them and would follow them anywhere. And if they left, a group of people would follow and go with them. That's leadership. Leadership is an act of service. And when people feel like you have their back and you want to see them succeed, they will reward you with love and loyalty. That's what happens.
I love that. Leadership is an act of service. So what does it matter if it's organizational structure leadership or thought leaders? As an act of service, that is the idea behind emerging trends, sharing and learning together. So we're right at our time. Let's finish up with this. Thank you for your time, your most valuable resource. We can't tell you how much we appreciate it. What you can expect is shortly after this, probably by tomorrow morning, you'll get an email with the deck included and all that content. You'll get a webinar recording with searchable transcripts. We believe this will make it easy to share with others within your organization and your network. And then the executive briefing that Rory talked about, which not only will build off of these concepts, but it'll give you the third-party research sources that we pulled the data from. And then, very excited to say, a distinguished colleague of ours, Derek Martinez, has published a book, The Agentic Advisor. And this book is about evolving business development people in this AI age to deliver greater value. Not only will you get, upon request, a copy of the book, but also he's willing to do a 30-minute session one-on-one to talk about these concepts, which is also a preview to our next coming webinar share, which will be professionals elevating their day-to-day actions in this revolutionary technology days. Thanks everybody for joining. Stay safe and be well.